It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. The Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, and Secretary of Homeland Security, John Kelly, arrived in Mexico on Wednesday to smooth out fraying relations between the United States and Mexico. Tillerson and Kelly arrived just as the Trump administration publicized newly issued immigration policies that threatened to dramatically increase the number of deportations of undocumented immigrants. The government of Mexico reacted to the new policy, calling it unprecedented. During a press conference in Mexico City on Thursday, Secretary Kelly tried to reassure Mexicans that the new policy was not as dramatic as it sounded. Let's have a look.
Now, this is something I would really like you all to pay attention to because it is frequently misrepresented or misreported in the press. Let me be very, very clear. There will be no mass deportations. Everything we do in DHS will be done legally and according to human rights in the legal justice system of the United States. All deportations will be according to our legal justice system, which is extensive and includes multiple appeals. The focus of deportations will be on the criminal element that have made it into the United States. All of this will be done, as it always is, in close coordination with the government of Mexico.
Joining us now from Mexico City to talk about the visit is John Ackerman. Professor Ackerman teaches at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He's also editor-in-chief of the Mexican Law Review and a columnist with La Jornada newspaper and Proceso magazine. Thanks so much for joining us today, John.
Thank you, Sharmini. Pleasure as always.
So, John, what has been the reaction so far from the Mexican media, say the public, to the Tillerson-Kelly visit? I guess I should add the government of Mexico here as well. What are they saying?
Well, they're just trying to kind of pretend that nothing is happening. It's really kind of sad, really, from my point of view. The Mexican government, you saw that in the Kelly statement. The Mexican officials are saying the same thing, that we're working together. We've agreed that neither country is going to take unilateral action, while accepting the fact that, of course, the United States is going to take unilateral action. And basically, the Mexican government is offering to work with Kelly and with Tillerson and with Trump on the mass expulsion of Mexicans from the United States to Mexico. There's no backbone at all in the response by the Mexican government. And of course, the national media in Mexico is controlled very much by the president's office, and so they're trying to present this as the most cordial relationship between the two sides. And this is what most benefits Mexico, supposedly, by having a strong but kind position, but it's not a strong position at all. Really, Pena Nieto is helping Trump out. There's nothing going on that side. So, from the point of view of Mexican society, this is very disturbing. So last night when Kelly and Tillerson arrived, they went and had dinner at the private residence of the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, along with the Secretary of Foreign Relations, Videgaray, but also the two heads of the Mexican military, the Secretary of the Defense and the Secretary of the Marines. Both of them were dining over probably fine wine and champagne with Tillerson and Kelly and getting along just well. This is pretty scary for Mexicans, because this means that the Mexican armed forces are basically kowtowing to and at the service of Trump's military expansionist tendencies.
Now, at the announcement of this holding cell where there was a back and forth between Trump and Pena Nieto about Mexican illegal immigrants being returned to Mexico, whether they're Mexican or otherwise, there was a bit of a tit and tat over that. What did you make of that? This is President Pena Nieto refusing to accept any of these immigrants that were coming or being returned to Mexico, rather.
Well, it's kind of a show by Pena Nieto trying to, demonstrate that he's resisting some of the actions by Trump. But this is not actually going to happen. It's very, I mean, if mass expulsions start, there's already been some pretty serious expulsions already under Obama, but if they start to happen in a large numbers, the Mexican government is not going to be able to or even want to look at the nationalities of these migrants unless they were really in a more aggressive attitude towards Trump. The this has not happened in the past. When Central American migrants are caught at the border, they're immediately returned to Mexico. Mexico doesn't have its own border police who are checking documents as people come back across the border. They're just at the more official checkpoints, and so. That if Trump really wants to send all the Central Americans to Mexico, he'll be able to do so. I mean, the Mexican government is not standing up to Trump. This is the painful fact for Mexicans on this side of the border of Mexico, and also for Mexicans in the United States. I mean, that's the real shame that Pena Nieto is not defending the Mexicans, millions of Mexicans, both legal and illegal or undocumented, who live in the United States.
Why is he doing that? I mean, Pena Nieto's approval ratings, as is, are rather low, and he could probably get a boost if he were to stand up to Trump, but he's not doing that. Why?
Well, because he is absolutely beholden to an elite, economically empowered class, an oligarchy in Mexico, who is not at all in the interest of any kind of conflict between the United States and Mexico. They have investments diversified on both sides of the borders. They're very worried about, for instance, the value of the peso. If there was an open conflict between Pena Nieto and Trump, the Mexican peso would probably tank the next day. And so they just want to, they're concerned about negotiating NAFTA, so it's in their interests. And so there are, transnational corporate interests who are, holding Pena Nieto down to make sure he's not too influenced by those very few nationalist elements which are still in his government. There are not many left; most of them are in the opposition. But the result has been, of course, a strengthening of the candidacy for López Obrador towards 2018. And so this is, the hopeful silver lining to all this.
Right. But however, the recent Trump administration's attacks, not only on Mexicans here in the United States, but the talk of the wall, who's going to pay for the border wall, the unfair treatment, the cancellation of NAFTA, all of these play into very anti-Mexican sentiments coming out of Washington. How are the people reacting to this?
The people are pretty upset. This is definitely there's generalized indignation among the Mexican population, concern about family members who are in the United States. Just about anybody you know in Mexico has at least some relative once or twice removed, a maximum, who lives in the United States or has been there. There's been an incredible transnational movement of people, and so. This is, in the end, definitely hurting the legitimacy of the Pena Nieto government, which is already on the floor. This is a very complicated political situation in Mexico today, and Pena Nieto just seems to not quite get it or quite care or, like I said, be interested in other interests. The old PRI, Pena Nieto is from the PRI, the party of the institutional revolution. The old PRI of the 50s and 60s was very authoritarian, just as authoritarian as Pena Nieto is today. But they at least had this kind of perhaps hypocritical, but a commitment to basic principles of national sovereignty. In the past, the Mexican government has even brought cases against the U.S. government and other governments to the International Court of Human Rights, other international bodies, the UN itself. But today, Videgaray threatens that if things keep getting bad, he might bring something to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights or the UN, but he hasn't done anything. And so it seems like they're just kind of waiting for Trump to chill out, calm down, and come into reason. But I think you guys in the United States have already waited enough and are making some clear decisions against Trump, which sounds good. In Mexico, we need to do the same. But unfortunately, our government's not with us on that.
Right. Now, if the Trump administration carry out what they say they're going to do, more deportations back to Mexico, this could seriously have economic implications on Mexico, since Mexicans remit almost, I believe it's like $25 billion to Mexico. And if people were deported, that money wouldn't go there. Plus, it would actually increase the number of people trying to get over to the United States as a result of the reduction of these remittances. What do you make of that?
Yes, exactly. This could seriously affect the Mexican economy. Remittances are the third largest source of foreign currency in Mexico after oil and tourism. Although you got to count drugs into that as well, so it's third or fourth. But it's one of the major sources of foreign funds for Mexico. If we were to lose a large amount of that, that would definitely affect the Mexican economy. If, in addition, the U.S. businesses were to, pull out en masse from Mexico, come back to the United States, this would also affect the Mexican economy. And like you said, this would increase the push factors toward Mexicans to migrate to the United States, which would, force, or not force, but would lead Trump to have a good excuse to, he said this today, right, militarize the border. He's definitely thinking about putting the National Guard out there instead of, in addition to the wall. This could be a really tragic situation, because there also are, more than 1 million people cross the border every day legally. Mexicans do their shopping in the United States. Americans come south to do business in Mexico. And so to really sort of turn this into a new Berlin Wall could hurt the Mexican economy, but it could also have a significant impact on the United States. Mexico is the third largest trading partner for the United States, and we are very much intertwined as economies.
Right, and I understand also the number one importer of oil in terms of countries is Mexico as well when it comes to the United States. So
Right.
Here the Trump administration is also proposing to introduce a whole bunch of tariffs on these imports as well. It's crazy times.
Yes. So the only optimism here is the stupidity of the powerful, right? So it seems like Trump has a reduced enough intelligence that he already has been, is going to continue to commit all sorts of mistakes, which Mexico on one hand and progressive force in the United States, we're going to have to be ready to pounce on at every minute. And one of those mistakes, for instance, in Mexico is attack on Pena Nieto in Mexico. What this is leading to in the medium run or even the short run is to an effervescence of political organizing and social discontent, which could lead to a political transformation in Mexico, which would not be favorable to Trump.
All right, Professor Ackerman, I thank you so much for joining us today, and we're going to continue our conversation in another part related to something you said earlier, which is the candidacy of the next president of Mexico, Manuel Lopez Obrador. So thank you for now.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here on the Real News Network.